Welcome to Brothers-In-Flaw Sports. I am your host, Normie, and our other host over
Hello.
there, somewhere, Cunyato. So,
Somewhere over here.
yeah. So, how you doing, Cunyato?
I'm doing all right, man. How about you?
Doing pretty good. And actually, we haven't been here for a while. Took a couple weeks off, but we're back. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. And before we start anything, I do want to play this. So, if you didn't notice, I made the playoffs in our league. Already a sure did. We still got 2 more weeks. Oh,
I hate that I have to give you props for that because that was pretty amazing. I do need to ask, how long did it take you to make that?
honestly, it really didn't take long.
Well, it really works.
I did the OBS and then I pulled up so in the YouTube studio there's like an audio library. So it's got all this like music that's free copyright free.
Yeah.
So I just did some of that and then popped it up on the screen.
Voila. Oh man. Well, it definitely works. It's also accurate. Actually, it wasn't but maybe 30 or 40 minutes ago that Will got here. And we were discussing him and Harry's joint team that they have in the playoffs, and then just looking at the standings, and it looks like you and Trent have 100% locked up both divisions, which is helpful for those of us sitting at the 500 range,
Yeah.
because now that leaves me with a 4% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah. A lot of shit's got to happen, but it can happen. That
What
happened last year.
it
And
did.
somehow I squeaked in last year.
What really sucks for me in my game this week is that he they played Justin Fields on Thanksgiving Day. And I texted our friend Santana, another member of the league. I was like, should I tell them that they're about to play a quarterback that's not playing? This is about an hour before the game. And Santana texts back, like, are you playing them this week? Like, yeah. He's like, absolutely not. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
thank God.
no.
I just needed one other person to tell me that that was still morally okay.
I was about to say if you would have said something to me, I would say no. It's Thanksgiving and already in the fantasy football. So if they ain't got it now, they ain't getting it.
And then Dawson Knox, I'm sorry, Dawson Knox goes off for my team as a tight end for like 15 plus points, and uh, 0 points from the quarterback position for them. It's looking at one point I was in like the 75 to 80% range for victory. Then the early game starts Sunday, after Thanksgiving Day. I only had Dawson Knox rolling Thursday, and obviously he had Justin Fields. Um, and it's still like it just, for about 30 minutes into those games, my win percentage hovered in the 80s, uh, high 70s. And then my team just completely shut down and didn't do a damn thing. And their team exploded. And I mean, I think we can go and break them up if you like. Go ahead and start with this shite that happened.
Yeah.
Absolute shite.
Ooh, that's tough. I mean,
my team just like they didn't even break 100, but my team just completely stopped. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's one of those to where if I had made weird, maybe not even weird moves, but some intuition moves. Not that it was my intuition, but if I had played Elijah Mitchell and Jalen Waddle, who both had excellent games, that woulda, coulda, shoulda type shit. I
Honestly, I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't have played Elijah Mitchell over these three running backs right here.
right?
Normally, these are three solid running backs. I wouldn't think. I mean, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Nope.
And then like Waddle. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase again.
He's the one that I actually was struggling with because even though Jamar Chase is still having himself a hell of a season, he started to come off uh, a little bit, a skosh. Whereas Jalen Waddle is starting to emerge.
Yeah,
Uh, look at his early season, and then obviously, week previous against Las Vegas, he still gives me 10 points, but that's not wonderful. Whereas Waddle is like he's come alive here lately. Also, his target share is absolutely insane.
yeah.
I mean,
He
he is the dude that Tua is looking for now. That's the only one I kind of kick myself for, but it would have been really hard to take Chase out for Waddle. Although that brings us to a side discussion, especially we can have that's just the two of us right now for this evening.
all right.
Who do you think is the offensive rookie MVP or the offensive rookie of the year? It wouldn't be the MVP. Offensive rookie of the year.
I gotta go with Mac Jones,
I mean he's definitely in that discussion,
and I'm
but
not trying to be biased,
no,
but
I 100% agree. And then also in that conversation right now would be Waddle. I mean, a little bit more on the outside, but
yeah.
he's starting to come
Um,
alive as
I,
well.
I mean, there's a lot of games left. So, I mean, if he explodes like has been doing and keeps up this pace, he could sneak it away.
What and I'd say you take those three between Jamar Chase, Mac Jones, and Jalen Waddle, and those are your three front runners. Najee was in that conversation for a little bit.
Yeah.
He
See, I
started,
forget about Najee because
yeah.
he just seems like he fits so well. Like he's been playing for 5 years.
He left Alabama as a professional player already. I mean, he
Yeah.
looked like a pro, and he still has. That Pittsburgh team they just can't find themselves this year. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's weird to even picture him being a rookie because he stepped in and just took over that role and that identity
Yeah.
so quickly.
Like I said, like he's been doing it for years.
Hmm.
Like it was like Le'Veon Bell coming back for the next year
I
until
mean,
he didn't.
that's a really good comparison. In fact, I don't know exactly like their running styles, but the way that they contribute both in the run and pass and are excellent pass blockers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, they found their other part of the killer bees. Unfortunately for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger.
That
I want to get a clean read for this. Ben Roethlisberger. This is probably his last season.
honestly, at this point, it's like you might as well
I mean,
just
right?
let it be the last season, get it over with.
Just
I
just
mean,
ride into the sunset here, man. Like because you're not. I heard actually a good bit of talk about it today, yesterday, and Monday. Obviously, post game, talking about like, well, he's such a competitor, he won't want to go out like this. It's like, well, if he keeps on pushing it, he's going to go out worse than this. I
yeah,
mean,
like a Drew Brees, or he's
well, at least Drew Brees only had the one down year. Ben Roethlisberger's been on this slide for a couple of years now.
but Drew Brees got fucked up that last year.
Oh no, well, I mean, he could barely get the ball out of his hands. Like, I
Well,
mean, he was
well,
throwing.
just even he got so hurt. I mean, what was it? Did it a rib puncture his lung, or did he have a collapsed lung? It was something like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he got seriously injured, and made the decision for him and his family. which was the right decision because he's making, you know, borderline starting quarterback money, not the money that he was making, but borderline starting quarterback money as a broadcaster now. So
Yeah, and he's always got walk-ons to fall back on.
yeah, the man is not hurting. I think he made the right call, and also like don't tarnish a legacy like that because Drew Brees is a top 5 guy of all time. I mean,
Yeah,
he's one of the best that's ever done it. Although speaking of their quarterback situation, what in the actual hell is going on with Taysom Hill and that contract that could be
yeah.
worth up to $95 million, which would be over, I think, the top 14 quarterback, or it would make him 14 or 15 in the league paid as a top starting quarterback. Now that's incentive laden, but still the floor is something like 20 million guaranteed. And then if he plays all the games, even without incentives, it's 45 million. What in
Wow.
the hell? Like he hadn't done shit. Like you played Simeon over him.
I made a joke about Trevor Simeon earlier this year. Like,
It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. But I will say, going back to this game, Jonathan Taylor, as far as the MVP race goes, a lot of people have not been talking about him for that, but he has got to be eking his way in there. If
yeah.
he had the volume that Derrick Henry did before he got hurt with the Titans, his numbers would be off the charts. He started a little slow, and he has just gotten hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter.
Fucking 50 burger.
Yep,
Wow.
a fucking 50 burger. And speaking of that, Harry and the Blood Spurts lost that game because he did that, and I can't remember which receiver. Maybe it was Devontae Adams for them that game. Threw up like a 20 burger. Yep, there
Yeah,
it is.
23.
And they played. I can't remember who they played last week. We've been off for a couple of weeks. Sorry, folks, but they played against Zeke or not Zeke. Damn it, Chargers running back.
Eckler.
Yeah, there we go. Austin Eckler, um, who ended up having himself a game that game. It wasn't a 50 burger, but I think it was close to a 40 pointer. So
Mm. But I mean, this is a tough loss.
yeah, and it's basically it's pretty much the nail in the coffin for me. But
I mean,
I'll keep setting my lineup. I'll keep on trucking, keep on playing.
that is one thing I've always done because I don't want to be the one that ends up in last place.
That's true. Although we really need to make last place have consequences, but we also have to decide on what last place
What?
is.
Yes, which is last place? Because you could be last place in the regular season, but finish up better.
Exactly. Exactly. Last place in the regular season. I think the general consensus is last place in regular season should be last place. Although I know a lot of people play it through the playoffs. But if you're going into the consolation rounds, then also there's a lot of tiebreakers that happen in the consolation rounds, even for
Mm-hmm.
last plays. I know I have a shirt that was gifted to me by one of the owners of this team right here. I sucked in fantasy football circa the year, and that was for my regular season because technically, by ESPN standards, I didn't finish last place because I played through the playoffs to make sure I wasn't last place. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I wasn't even the bottom 2 after the playoffs were over, but I was the worst in the regular season. And that's fair. That's fine.
Oh man.
All right, you want to kick it to your game there, Normie?
Yeah, we can. Actually got a little worried, and yeah,
Also, just sidebar, Cody, one of our regular co-hosts on here, he last minute had to cancel, had some stuff come up, but he did send his thoughts that the Iron Bowl buttholes are falling apart, and the Detroit Lions suck. And
We knew the second one.
yep,
They gave their fans so much hope on Thanksgiving.
and that was entirely coaching mismanagement and clock mismanagement. Like they should have won that game. Now, full disclosure, they still did me a real solid.
Yeah,
Let me
and the
I'll
spread.
with you there. They covered.
Well, that's always a plus. I mean, normally it seems like Detroit can be a safe bet because they're usually pretty close. They're usually in the game,
I
but they
think they've
just
only
always blow it.
I think they've only lost one game all season by more than a possession. They they are a scrappy ass team. I stand by my short that I made earlier this year. Although I'm definitely backing off on what I thought would have happened. I think that was after week 2 or 3 when I made that. I definitely thought they were going to win some games, and
Yeah,
now I'm not positive about that whatsoever. They find some pretty odd ways. Speaking of Thanksgiving Day, they find weird ways to lose games,
yeah.
but they're in them. They're in them.
Mm-mm. I mean, they got the shit beat out of them by the Eagles, but like, so they tied with the Steelers. They lost by 3 and then lost by 2.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The Eagles, I think, took them to the Woodhouse or took them out back behind the woodshed, um, and uh, and the Eagles, they find a way to go and get their brains beat out, even though it seemed like they were kind of on an upswing this week.
Welcome to the world of Jalen Hurts.
He's
Man.
such a class act. I'm always going to be pulling for him, and I'm not even an Alabama fan. He's just
Oh,
a class act.
don't
But
get me wrong. I'm always pulling for Jalen Hurts. I just
yeah,
know Jalen Hurts and know
yeah,
what Jalen Hurts is going to do.
it's wild to me that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's also wild to me that Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones are all three starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and the one that looks the best out of all three of them
It's
is
Mac
Mac
Jones.
Jones.
Yeah,
That's
my dad was
insane.
actually talking about that a couple weeks ago, and he said he thought Mac Jones was the best one out of the 3.
I mean, collegiately, I mean, college games are a different game. Even though they borrow from one another, this, that, and the other. The more athletic you are in college, it helps you more for the overall game plan.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you more weapons. Whereas in the NFL, their talent on the defensive side of the ball, whether it be their DNs, some of the D tackles nowadays, God bless you, Aaron Donald, uh, the linebackers on the next level, and then even your safeties and cornerbacks who can come crashing down and wreck that. Uh, is it better to be athletic? For sure. I mean, Aaron Jones, Patrick, or not Aaron, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. Those are that's the perfect amount of athleticism, but
Mm-hmm.
also have the arm talent and decision making, in my opinion. And Mac Jones is less athletic. He actually probably doesn't even have the arm talent of those guys, but his IQ, his football IQ, is incredibly high.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of the right. Now he's also a rookie, and I've seen that. I mean, he had that 3-pick game against the Jets, and that
I think so. Actually, I had him on my team. Let's see. New Orleans.
New Orleans. There it is.
And it was the 3rd game of the year.
Mm-hmm. But otherwise, he plays clean football. He knows his role. And that's a lot to do with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick's system having a really, really good defense and an incredibly strong run game. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of it's situational. He landed in the best situation for him. Like, oh, you're a game managing quarterback? Well, guess what we need you to be? And that's how Tom Brady started his whole career. I
Yeah,
mean, he wasn't throwing up huge numbers in the early 2000s. He was doing enough to get them over the hump. And then he evolved into, well, the greatest of all time.
yeah.
So,
So I think he's doing good enough right now. So
yeah, for sure. And then it looks like Matthew Stafford got you to the win.
about damn time.
He's he,
Golly,
he's the
what is up
exact
with his like? He's got
he's
to
the,
have a blick.
he's
He's got to
the
have at least one interception a game.
he's the exact opposite of Mac Jones. Mac Jones is figuring it out. He is figuring it out. He's becoming one with the system they want him to run. And he's getting better and better and better at it. Stafford started out this year leading the MVP race. For a bit, it looked like he was going to run away with it. He was
Yeah,
on pace without the 17 games to break Drew Brees and Tom Brady's records for passing and touchdowns. And then he's falling apart.
yeah,
He has to guarantee the other team at least 6 points.
yeah.
It's like he will look that defender in the eye like, hey, you,
Hey,
I'm
here's six
throwing
on
to
us.
you. I want to spot you these 6. And then we'll figure it out from here. And then that was just the 6 from this past game against Green Bay. The 2 previous games, it was 2 pick sixes, or actually 2 pick sixes in one, and then a pick 6 and
Yeah.
a fumble for a scoop and score in the other. It just, although it doesn't say fumble, maybe
No,
fumble for Green Bay. I don't know. It's rough, but at least he got you to the window, you know?
he did. Well, usually he's good at making up for it, so I don't usually worry too much. But he got me there, and I don't know what's up with Nick Chubb. If he's just well, he's actually had some pretty good games, but I'm just not used to that 3.9. And then let's see. Josh Jacobs does what he normally does. And then Brandon Ayuk.
Mm-hmm. Ayuk.
So he's been one of those weird ones. I've kept him. I drafted him. I've kept him on my bench all year. I've rarely used him because whenever I did or had to, he would score like 3 points. But past 2 weeks, he's been pretty solid.
He's he's in a weird situation. You know, he's the second receiver on an offense that's predicated on the run first, and then when they throw the ball, they throw it to a lot of different people. Debo Samuels is the man, and then after, well, hell, Debo sometimes isn't even the man, even though it's him and Cooper Cup, even with Matthew Stafford's struggles, leading the league in receiving yards this year, and I believe also 1 and 2 in receptions as well. But although I think Jalen Waddle's starting to creep in there. But then they also have George Kittle, and George Kittle has only missed a couple of games this year. So Ayuk is sometimes the second or third weapon, but then even after Ayuk, they have other weapons, and they're a run first offense. But he's talented as shit. I think he's coming out of Arizona State. He's got talent for days, and I I think he's going to find his niche in the NFL as a, I don't know, insert name of a really solid number 2 receiver.
Mm. Let's see. I can't think of one right now.
Yeah, nor can I.
I remember like Mohamed Sanu when he was at the Falcons.
Who's
He,
also on that 49ers team.
he was like a second or third, but he was really solid, and you could throw it to him down the middle. He was always going to catch the ball. But
That's kind of how I picture Ayuk. Think about Sanu when he was at the Falcons and I believe at the Bengals. He was that number 2 option
Yeah.
But because they had other weapons, he was inconsistent for a fantasy player. As an NFL player, phenomenal. But I believe that's what Ayuk is right now, but with the potential to, possibly become more consistent,
Hmm.
especially with the way Jimmy Garoppolo is playing. I think it's really,
Yeah.
I think it's really good to have on your team. Uh, that's also why Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. You can't hardly count on any one of those three right now because early on in the season it was the Jamar Chase show, but now that ball started to get spread around more in Cincinnati, just bumping down to your second level there on wide receiver.
Yeah, I had to play him because Hopkins, he's been out and then he was on a bye. And I thought he was the better play before Van Jefferson. So I was wrong, but
It's a tough gamble. That was a tough decision to make. I think I would probably have chosen the same, especially
and
with
it,
the year that Tyler Boyd had last year. Van
yeah.
Jefferson is still a third year player, kind of coming into his own. I actually think Tyler Boyd might be a third year player as well, but Tyler Boyd had a starting receiver year last year.
Yeah, he hadn't had that much this year, but I was like, yeah, I'll go with because I took Van Jefferson last week. He gave me like 5 points, and then Jacoby Myers, he's been so up and down. I think I've had him all year, but I've never started him, or what? I think I may have started him like once,
Yeah, I was telling
and
Will out when we were talking when he got home. He was talking about playing. Uh, I can't remember which Patriots player. I was like, other than Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski in their heyday, it is incredibly tough
mm-hmm.
to play a Patriots offensive player in Bill Belichick's reign because they will spread that ball all over. And if you pick the right one, they can drop a 30 or 40 burger. I mean, you can have son of a bitch. I can't think of his name. Um,
We had
Darian
White,
Palmer. Yeah, James
White,
White
Blunt,
done it. Yeah, LeGarrette Blunt's done it.
Rex Burkhead's done it. Like,
That's what I'm really trying to think of because Rex Burkhead had a few massive games last year and year before, but none of them are consistent. Not a
mm-mm.
one.
Yeah, I played that game one year and I lost. I had like two of them.
I think I drafted Devin Singletary. Not Devin Singletary. Damian Harris. His rookie year. I was like, okay, this is the dude. Like, this is a lean on type of guy coming out of Alabama, and his skill set. He's excellent running, catching, and can block. And then they're like, yeah, you can do all those things. So can all these guys. So
Yeah,
you're 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 a
um,
big part of the offense, but you're not the offense.
well, in a lot of games last year, he was a healthy scratch,
Yeah, yeah. He like there were multiple times where he didn't even travel. I mean,
but this year he's the guy.
yeah. Well, but even then, now he's the guy. Now, and even then, you can't count on him as a
Yeah.
fantasy player. And that's just the rub that I would tell anybody who's playing fantasy football. Don't judge these players and their abilities by what they can do on the fantasy football scoreboard because Damian Harris is a hell of a football player. I mean, Brendan Ayuk is a hell of a football player. These guys will be long term NFL players and have long term contracts and make big money because they know what they're doing. They're very talented. It depends on system. It depends on how the team chooses to use them.
Hmm.
It's it's tough to find consistency, especially with the way that offenses are changing it up, pacing wise, and also knowing that multiple options can be incredibly deadly.
Yep. Now you can judge T.J. Yeldon's performance. That was just T.J. Yeldon.
Yeah, no, he
I hated him when he was at Alabama. They used him
hated.
so much, but he was after his freshman year. His freshman year, fucking lights out, and he was running. out there, and it was. I mean, he was running people over, and he just looked like a young player. But after that, it was like he was scared, and
Well,
then he would run towards the line and then bounce it every damn time.
he
And after that, and then you got, you know, Kenyon Drake and Derrick Henry sitting on your bench, and you're playing this guy.
I will say, especially after the two of them did what they did collegiately, uh, it seemed like nepotism. It seemed like we're going to run him for what he did for us the previous year,
Yeah.
even though the other two have pretty much proven they were more talented and more uh, capable overall. But
Well, I mean, even Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs.
yeah, I
There
mean,
again, it was like, I mean, I like Damian Harris. Don't get me wrong, God, he seems like a great guy and a great person. He's a great football player, but Josh Jacobs was better in college.
well, Josh Jacobs handled less than a third of the load his entire time at Alabama, which is why he was valued really highly by the Raiders when they drafted him because he has a ton of tread left on the tires. Because when he would touch the ball, I think he left college averaging over 8 yards a carry,
Yeah, it was something insane.
but he just didn't touch the ball that much. I was like, well,
Yeah.
okay, well, we'll go grab the dude who is a badass and also hasn't had the wear and tear that a Derrick Henry or, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, those guys who have to carry the load at a school like that is so run first.
Well,
Although,
used to be.
yeah, not this year. Well, I don't know. I don't know. B Rob probably the top back in the league until he got hurt just this past game. I think he was top back in the league.
Hmm. I mean, I like him too. He's been one of those that just he waited his time and
He's
then
just not
finally got.
flashy. That's his only thing. Like
Yeah.
he's like there's nothing flashy about him. Like he's not gonna like juke people out of their shoes for the most part. He's not gonna have those big giant like I'm a man amongst boys, Derrick Henry type runs. But he's big, he's fast, he's strong, he does what he needs to do, and he's consistent. He's just incredibly consistent.
Yeah, I think that was more the Damian Harris type of like because Damian Harris really wasn't that flashy at
I
Alabama,
agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I think
but
that's good.
he was very consistent.
Yeah, yeah. Just he did his job.
Yeah, so I like him. I hope he goes forward. But we'll just have to see.
We'll break off on this for our regional dialect here. What scares me for the SEC championship coming up is that B Rob's injury is incredibly reminiscent for 2017 when Kerryon Johnson got hurt. Like can play, but if they do play, might be a shell of themselves. And
The
then
only,
so Kerryon played and looked like a shell of himself. And well, so very often as the case, the offense goes as the running game goes. Uh, and now Alabama without B Rob, say he happens not to play, is down to one scholarship running back with Trey Sanders, who looked good to finish up the Auburn game. I mean, yeah, he looked good in the Iron Bowl, but you know that that's not their first option, or otherwise,
it wasn't the second or third.
yeah, like that, like they have buried him on like behind everybody they possibly could have until they couldn't anymore.
Yeah,
So that's
we'll
a
see how
that's
it
a
plays
scary one.
out. I mean, that's going to be a. Well, let's talk about what happened on Saturday, if you want to.
I'm fine. I've reconciled.
So, those who don't know, I'm a huge Alabama fan. Cunado is a huge Auburn fan. So, this was a crazy one. I and the weirdest thing is, okay, so after LSU and Arkansas, I was really pissed because I'm like, there's no way we should let these teams, come this close to us. These teams are awful, especially LSU. Now LSU did just beat Texas A&M, but at
As soon
that
as
time,
as soon as LSU announced Ogeron's firing or mutual departure, but allowed him to coach the rest of the season, that was literally right before the Alabama game. I'm pretty sure they're 3-0 since then. And he took to the Alabama game uh, 50 scholarship players, where generally most teams have
mhm,
84. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking 2/3 of scholarship players that you're supposed to have. So many people had already opted out. After he got announced to be fired, a couple more opted out. That game, I think the spread was 28.5.
mhm.
It was supposed to be a bloodbath. But since that announcement happened, LSU's players, the ones that are playing, the ones that remain, are playing their asses off for that man. And I actually think that's really indicative to how at least the core of the team feels about the head coach. And
Yeah,
good for him. I'm glad they're sending him off the right way.
but after those wins, I mean, we still won. Arkansas, we won by 7. I was still pretty pissed. But after this one, even on Sunday, like on Saturday night, I kept looking and checking my phone because I'm like, is this real? I got to make sure this this is real.
This is really happening.
And then Sunday, every time I thought about it, I just get a big smile on my face. Like, well, I mean, because honestly, at this point with this team, I'm like, if they win, they win. I'm not gonna. And it's kind of a little surprising when they, eventually pull it out
Well, it
because this team is just not near as good as once we've had.
well when when you're talking about Alabama, you're really talking about playing against perfection, because that's the standard that Alabama has pretty much given everybody. Uh, and the very most recent Alabama team that we can remember is arguably the best team in college football history.
Yeah.
They ran a gambit of a 10-game SEC schedule and won every single game, and also stormed through the playoffs. And not only did they win every single game, yes, there were some. I, I actually think they did every one of them technically by double digits.
Florida. We only beat Florida by 6.
There it is. But even then, watching that game in the SEC championship, even then, it was very clear and obvious who the best team on the field was. Uh, and in fact, that whole season between Florida and Ole Miss, and who else scored a lot on Alabama? I feel like there's a third team, but I'm not positive. I know Florida and Ole Miss were like the two closest.
Yeah, I know Georgia scored 21.
And it was Georgia in the first half, and that's where the whole team actually started to kind of take its turn.
That was the turning point of the season. Was
Yeah,
the second half of Georgia game.
yep. Um, Bama looked like the best team in the country, and not by a little, but by a whole lot, and then finished that way, and then they closed the deal. Whereas a lot of people compare 2019 LSU in that same vein as one of the best collegiate football teams of all time. But LSU had to fight for their lives a couple of times. They barely escaped both Alabama and Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And then had a couple of more dog fights on their hand that the score wasn't indicative to the game at the end. Whereas Alabama, even in the score wasn't indicative to the game for Ole Miss and Florida or Georgia, really, even for that matter, because once they turned it on, and they always seem to have had that ability. So it's really tough, I think, to reconcile what they were just a year ago to what's happening right now, especially when the team they're about to play right now kind of looks like that. Like they look like 2020 Alabama, they look like 2019 LSU, they look like one of those teams. But I will say, if I was a betting man, and I think the line has crawled up to 6.5 and seven and
Mm-hmm.
a half for Georgia, I would play Alabama because Nick Saban does not lose hardly at all. Uh, I think he's undefeated against Georgia, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
and also never bet with the public. and that line started at 3 and has climbed to 6 because of how much the public has bet on that. And every time Georgia, or not Georgia, every time Alabama, it's supposed to be a big dog for Saban. Like he whips ass. So
I've told people at work about this year's team, and I'm like, what if this is just Saban's like the biggest troll move ever in college football history, where he has just like pretty much hampered the offense and only let them run like a particular number of plays, and it's just saving all that. Like that, I was like, that'd be the biggest troll in college football.
and maybe that's the thing, but what I think of it is that, and I've heard a lot of former players say that Nick Saban is half head coach, half psychiatrist. Uh, and this year is the most unique year. He's talked about the team, the players. Usually he is a-okay with just dogging them out
Mm.
and like getting fired up and yelling and cussing them on the sideline. He has been so much calmer, cooler, collected, has their backs, and all of his pressers went off on that rant before the Auburn game, which I really thought meant Auburn was going to get their shit kicked in. Also, quick side note, going back to this actual game that's on the screen, I'm really proud of this Auburn team for that game. Now, overall for the year, no, that kind of sucked. Definitely should have beat South Carolina. Definitely should have beat
Mm.
Mississippi State. Was actually in the game for the most part. A&M should have beat Penn State earlier on in the year. Now Georgia us, and that's, I mean, they look like the best team. There was no point in that game where I thought Auburn. I mean, we hung with them pretty close for about 3 quarters,
Mm-hmm.
or 2.5 quarters into the third quarter, and then that's when they pulled away. Uh, but yeah, to hang in there, and not just hang in there. I mean, you see the win probability, 81.3% for Auburn right there on the screen with a backup quarterback. I mean, yeah, and that's right when Tank Bigsby ran out of bounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was y'all's punt. The fourth and 5 at the Alabama 41.
And I understand why he stayed in bounds. First off, I don't think that he thought Jordan Battle was going to be able to pull him out of bounds. And secondly, he's still trying to make a football play to go get the first down, because if he gets the first down, the game's over.
Yep. Mm.
Uh, that was a hell of a game. That was a crazy Iron Bowl. Maybe the craziest
Ooh.
I've seen.
I was about
And
to say, I
we've seen
told you I lost 5 years of my life for that
we have
game.
seen some wild ones. Uh, between the kick six, the cam back. I don't even know what they call 2017. Mac Jones. No, not 2019. Bo Nick's first year.
Pick six. You got McElroy to Upchurch
Yep.
in 2009.
There have been some wild ones, but that one just overall just felt really weird the entire time.
It
Uh,
did.
I also wouldn't judge Alabama by anything that happens in the Iron Bowl because, well, in 2017 when Jarrett Stidham and the boys in blue got it done. Bama doesn't go to the SEC championship. Auburn does with a hurt Kerryon Johnson, and doesn't get it done. And then Alabama's like, yeah, well,
And
we're
then
so good.
the
We
two
don't.
teams y'all beat end up in the national
Yeah,
championship.
yeah, exactly. Like we don't really need an SEC championship. We've got history on our side, which is accurate, and I don't begrudge that at all. That was the right call to put Alabama in. One loss Alabama team, and they were the best team in the nation, and showed it, and showed that they were marginally the best team in the nation against the other best team in the nation that my team just so happened to luck out and win against. And it felt lucky. It felt lucky to beat both of those teams that year, and I would have liked to see Kerryon Johnson healthy though, and that would have possibly set up for an Auburn Alabama national championship that year.
It'll happen. I mean, it's inevitable.
It kind of seems like it might. Well, although with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, I don't know. I don't know if that distances it or not. I mean, it's going to be tougher to put two in the 4-team format. It's going to be tougher to put multiple SEC teams, especially from same division, same state, and also they'll start eating each other a little bit more. Although also, if you want to hang on to the college format of football that we're talking about, Lincoln Riley made one of the smartest, scaredest little bitch moves I've ever seen in my life. Smart, 100% smart to get the fuck out of Dodge before he had to go play in the SEC. Go take the path of least resistance. Like go to USC because you're damn near guaranteed you're just gonna be the Oklahoma of the Pac-12, like Oklahoma was with the Big 12 with USC. Like you're gonna start keeping recruits home, keeping your recruiting base solid. West Coast turns, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Matt Corral, like you're just gonna start keeping those boys home, and then
Najee
also,
Harris.
yeah, Najee, like, and then John Mechie, like, and then your competition is the Pac-12, which is a joke. It was the smartest decision of all time, but it was also one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That, like, Oklahoma, I don't even think that he gave them a chance to match. And then LSU was probably throwing even more money at him. I think
Yeah.
LSU would have given him, I mean, they would have, I feel deep down in my heart LSU would have been close to doubling up the top coach salary. I'm talking 16, 17 million dollars a year. It
Yeah.
seemed like such a foregone conclusion for a couple of days that he was going to LSU. And I thought that that was an excellent decision to do because why would you stay at Oklahoma where you
Yeah.
can't recruit like you can at LSU? Because LSU also borders Texas. LSU has way more in-state talent than Oklahoma. You'll both
Mhm.
be in the SEC, and you don't know how it's going to be organized, anyways. And the last 3 coaches at LSU have won national championships, whereas Bob Stoops, one of your most revered coaches for Oklahoma, won one, and Lincoln Riley, probably your third most revered coach right now, behind Switzer and Stoops, has been in the playoffs 3 times and gotten their brains beat in.
Yeah,
So
they were always good at beating SEC teams when it didn't matter. When they played SEC teams in the Final Four, they got the shit beat out of them.
yeah, I mean they
But
got
when it didn't matter, they would win, and then they would act like they won the national championship.
yeah, and then so much of the like it's a reason why I'll always have an axe to grind against Bob Stoops. He was just constantly shit talking the SEC. He's like everybody talks about, well, and a lot of coaches do. Jim Harbaugh's done the same thing. That's fine. It doesn't mean that bad coaches or and in fact most of them have coached great teams. I think even Urban Meyer, who came from the SEC, or didn't come from Utah or Florida. Anyways, when he was at Ohio State after having won 2 national championships at Florida, even shit talked the SEC. Um, but no, I think Lincoln Riley, he got the fuck out of Dodge because he was like, everybody talks shit about the SEC. No one talks shit about the Big Ten. No one talks
Yeah.
shit about Big 12. Like, as far as being overrated, they might talk shit about them as far as being, shitty or,
Yeah.
garbage or this, that, or the other. But especially the Pac 12,
Yeah. Oh, look, they think they're football.
yeah, he got the hell out of Dodge. Like, that was a calculated move. I could have 2 of the best jobs in the country. And really, either one of them is arguably better than USC. And I would make the argument that LSU is significantly better than USC right now. And he took
Oh, yeah.
USC.
Yeah,
And
that's
the pay would have been about the same at any one of them. Oklahoma would have unloaded the pocketbooks and grabbed all the boosters to keep them.
yep.
LSU was willing to pay anybody whatever number to go get them. They openly said money's not an object. He picks USC. Now, it's a private university, so we'll never get the details of the contract. Obviously,
Yeah.
some of the rumors have come out. It's a big salary and private jet access and a bunch. I bought his house, and doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Oklahoma and LSU would have been willing to get close to that neighborhood. He was like, "Do I want to go and fight my ass off every single week, or do I want an easy path to the playoffs like I've had my entire head coaching career?"
Yep. And I'll ask you this: do you think Oklahoma, one part of Oklahoma's decision to join the SEC was based on having Lincoln Riley as their head coach?
I've heard that he was heavily involved in all of the movement. I've heard that he was heavily involved. Like, they asked him, he said, "Yeah, let's do it. You want to be the best, got to beat the best."
Yeah.
All like now, that's all that's all hearsay. I can't even cite my sources because I've listened to a lot of sports radio and read a lot of sports articles, so I can't even tell you exactly which member of the media, but it's multiple. I know it's multiple have said that he
Yeah.
was heavily involved in the movement. He was consulted by uh, Arrows, I think is their AD, heavily
Yeah.
consulted. Like, he was a part of that maneuver.
And then he bails.
Yeah. And then he's
That's
like,
just nuts.
now that I'm thinking about it, mm, I always find a way to lose a game in the Big 12 that I shouldn't.
Yep.
And the Big 12 sucks. And I'm about to go play in the SEC where literally only one team doesn't do that on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at this year when what is it, 13 out of the 14 teams made it to a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
well, and then the power that is Alabama. I mean, they had no business losing to A&M whatsoever
mm-mm.
this year. I mean, it just happened. And then he just thought, well, that's Alabama. I mean, they are automatic, even in the strongest conference in football. They're automatic to the playoffs, uh, and still also, obviously have a huge shot to get in. They beat
Yep.
Georgia, they're in.
Yeah.
Also, the playoff committee is going to have just so much shit on their hands. If Bama beats Georgia, Oklahoma State wins, Cincinnati wins, and Michigan wins,
Ooh,
who you booting?
that's a tough one. I mean, I would boot. And do you say Notre Dame in there as well?
Oh, I didn't. No, because Notre Dame's not playing. Like, Notre Dame has to have chaos happen to get in. I'm talking the only chaos of the things Alex.
But you got to factor in too. Notre Dame's not going to lose this week.
Yeah, they're not going to lose for sure. But the CFP chairman's already said Brian Kelly leaving has affected Notre Dame as a team.
Hmm.
So we will factor that in. And then I read a list of things like that's actually in the things that they're supposed to factor: head coach availability, player health, head coach health, stuff like that. And so it
Wow.
actually will affect them. It would take chaos for them to get in. It would take kind of the opposite of what I'd said. I think
Yeah.
Georgia wins, Baylor wins, Iowa wins, Houston wins. That's your shot for a Notre Dame to get in.
Yeah.
Because Iowa, obviously, you wouldn't put in. Baylor, I think, is still a two-loss Big
It's
12
too
team,
long.
so you wouldn't put them in. Houston beat Cincinnati, so Cincinnati bumps out, and then that's where you can. And then Georgia eliminates Alabama. So
Mm.
that's it's almost the exact opposite scenario. Although they're still looking at it. I mean, but it would take chaos for Notre Dame to get in. I'm talking about play almost the chalk, other than Bama beating Georgia. That's where you play against the chalk and you give the committee the biggest headache of their goddamn
Hmm.
life.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I mean, because you look at the two losses, but they just won the SEC championship, just beat the number one team. And then you look at the Georgia, it's like, well, that's only one loss, and it was to the number two team
Mm-hmm.
or number three team. So
I mean, you've got to put the SEC champ in there. So Bama would
yeah,
go, and then you
you
can't
gotta put
eliminate.
Georgia.
I'll say you can't eliminate Georgia off of a loss because, well, we saw it when Notre Dame had to play in the ACC last year when they played Clemson three
Yeah,
damn times. They played a regular season, ACC championship, and in the playoffs one more time.
no,
Just
they didn't play in the playoffs
did they not play in the play? Oh yeah,
because
yeah, you're right.
Alabama
You're
beat the
right.
crap out of Notre Dame,
But there was that
and
outside shot of them playing again. You're right.
yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. Like, so similar situation, and like you can't leave a team that's looked that good out.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so Georgia goes. So Bama and Georgia. If Bama wins, Bama and Georgia go in. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion. And then you've got Michigan. They win. I think that's a shoe in. You put
yeah,
them in. The Big Ten. As much shit as I talk about them, that's a really solid conference. And Michigan physically dominated Ohio State, who for about 75% of the season looked like a top four team until they played Michigan, who just physically dominated them. And then even
yep.
then, that was a game. But Oklahoma State, I don't know. I don't watch much Big 12, but they've only got the one loss. Um,
I I say Cincinnati. You boot Cincinnati. You put the big guys in. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
right? And it would feel so unfair for a team to go undefeated
Yep.
twice, twice in a row, and be this close. But I mean,
I
they just don't have to grind the way that everybody else does. They're
yeah.
just not playing the same level of competition. It's just different.
Yeah,
I mean,
they don't lose a starter every other week or something like
exactly.
that.
When you're not playing 4 and 5 star guys game in and game out.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the Big 12 has Kansas, who beat Oklahoma. Uh, and yes, the SEC has Vandy, who sucks dick. And uh, the Big Ten has Rutgers, although Greg Schiano is a miracle worker at that program 2 times in a row.
They
I
also
really
got
don't.
Maryland
They've also got Maryland.
and
Although,
Indiana and Illinois.
Indiana was supposed to be good this year, and Illinois shocked some people. Although, also Nebraska, who is very
Ooh.
much the collegiate embodiment of the Detroit Lions.
Ooh, yeah. Well, no, because at least Nebraska did something at one point.
Oh yeah, no. Okay,
The Detroit Lions have
I'm
never
talking about
done.
for this season,
Yeah.
not in the history of the
Oh,
program.
okay.
No,
I was going to
so
say
no, no, no,
at
no.
least Nebraska's done something. Now it was 30 or 40 years ago, but it happened.
It is back in the '90s. He's only 30ish years ago, mid '90s to from the mid '90s, and then go back to like I think the
The early
early
80s.
'70s, but for sure the early '80s. But I thought they were even successful in the '70s. Nebraska was one of the most dominant collegiate football programs on the planet, if in multiple years the most dominant. But yeah, they have fallen far since then, no doubt about that. But no, I'm just talking about for this year, one
Yeah.
possession games. They find a way to rip defeat out of the jaws of victory multiple times. Um, but anyways,
So I say Cincinnati gets the boot. Now the only way they get in is if like there's craziness happens, like you said, like Georgia beats Alabama, that puts
well,
Alabama
if
out.
Georgia beats Bama, it
And
takes
then
all of the headache off of the CFP. Like it
yeah,
takes all the headache. So okay,
we don't have to worry about putting Bama on
we
and
can
Georgia in.
yeah, we can eliminate Bama. Now it's just Georgia. We got the one SEC team. Uh, Michigan probably beats Iowa. You put Michigan in. Uh, Cincinnati probably beats Houston. You put Cincinnati in. Oklahoma State probably beats Baylor. you put Oklahoma State in. Um,
All right, so here's the situation. So Bama loses, but like by 1 point
mm-hmm.
to Georgia. And say Michigan wins, they're in, Georgia's in. And then Oklahoma State loses. Do you put 2-loss Alabama in? Or do you put undefeated Cincinnati in? Now, 2-loss Alabama, one is to the number 1 team in the country, and they lost by 1.
Okay, well, in that scenario, so Georgia is a lock, Michigan's a lock.
Yes. And Georgia only beat Alabama by like 1.
But
But
okay, so in that scenario, you say Cincinnati wins, they beat Houston.
Cincinnati wins, Oklahoma State loses.
Okay, well that I believe is a 2-loss Big 12 champion in Baylor, also, and then on the West Coast, if Oregon beats Utah, that's a 2-loss Pac-12 champion. And Notre Dame. I'm looking at them with that outside shot. If it was me, and so say Oregon beats Utah, which I don't think is going to happen. I think they're a 3-point dog, which is actually kind of crazy because Utah beat the dog shit out of them just a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
But I've heard a lot of people say that they think it's a shoe-in for them to win that, even though they're not the better team. It's just tough to win against the same team twice type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to bear out in football pretty constantly when teams are equally talented. Okay, so Georgia, Michigan.
Well, wait, Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State all win.
Okay.
So you have one spot left. So do you put Cincinnati, Notre Dame?
That's the tough one. That's the tough one. So
yeah, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, or a 2-loss Alabama team that lost by 1 to the number 1 team in the country.
Cincinnati, especially, they play a close game with Houston, which is a decent football team, but they beat Houston by the skin of their teeth in kind of a fluky manner. I think you can pretty much drop Notre Dame because the chairman of the college football playoff board's already said Brian Kelly leaving affects their chances, and they have no game to win. Although that benefits them, they have no game to lose. But once again, I think that they could still get in, but it would take almost all the chalk losing. Other than Georgia, I think Georgia beating Bama helps them, and then pretty much everybody else losing in their conference championships. And then I think Notre Dame's looking right down the barrel of a nightmare for the CFP. But in the scenario where Georgia wins, Oklahoma State wins, Michigan wins, Cincinnati wins, it would be tough, especially if Cincinnati played a really close game with Houston. And like I said, won in a fluky manner. It would be really tough to put them in, knowing what Alabama is when they play their best for 60 minutes, which I think they've only done one time this year against Mississippi State. I'm really glad I'm not on the committee this year. This year, the committee actually seems to be like there's always been some hard decisions.
I know a lot of people that are going to be pulling for Georgia this week because that's kind of the biggest stakes there.
I bet every single person on the committee, and I'm not sure if Bama has somebody tied in there or not. Generally, there's multiple power brokers from your big schools tied in. I know they switch it up and everything. I'm not saying there's even conspiracy there. I think they've done a decent enough job. I also don't know why we just didn't do the BCS system and just take the top four.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like they ever left off the top four. Although I will say, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I've heard a couple of, and my favorite local show that we talk about sometimes, if you did the BCS, it's not always ranked the exact same as the CFP, but the entire time the CFP has been in existence, it would have been the top four in the BSC or BCS. I haven't looked into that, but maybe. I don't know. But this year would be a nightmare to be on that committee.
Yeah. Oh man. So let's head back to some fantasy football. Got a few more to go over.
And some of these we can really breeze by.
Yeah.
This one, not so much because both of these teams are still alive. Just a quick breakdown.
Cam
What in the hell happened to both of their starting quarterbacks?
Well, one is Cam Newton and the other one is Jalen Hurts. That pretty much explains it all.
Okay, all right. That's fair for Jalen Hurts.
Cam is back on the
That's
bench.
fair for Jalen Hurts. But I feel like we have to add the caveat of 32-year-old Cam Newton. Because this is young Jalen Hurts. This is prime Jalen Hurts. Cam Newton was an MVP caliber player for a long time. Now, is he that anymore? No. Will he be that ever again? I don't think
No.
so.
No. It's no.
Also, Ezekiel Elliott was really a fluke for a 10.9. Tony Pollard stole that show Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Pollard is taking over the Cowboys' backfield. And I remember at the negotiation table, they're like, "Why should we pay you this way? Like, backs come and go, come and go, come and go." And then they paid him. And since they paid him, Tony Pollard.
He is the best backup running back in the entire league.
Yep.
And could start pretty much most places.
Yep.
AJ Dillon. Actually, AJ Dillon did pretty good for him.
AJ Dillon's coming along, man. I've actually heard a lot of people talk about. In fact, I heard Aaron Rodgers talking on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He just his work ethic is really, really solid. He's very consistent, and he is an attention to detail type guy. So I don't know how prolific his career is going to be, but I think it's going to be long.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what matters, especially in the pros.
So you had Deontay Johnson. Well, he started Josh Gordon. Well, first of all, you started Josh Gordon, and then you started him on a bye.
Yeah, maybe that's why he didn't show up this week. That's too bad. I really would have liked to laugh in his face for that.
Yep, right.
I feel like I owe him 1,000 just since we've been doing these casts.
I mean, it's Josh Gordon.
Also knew some dipshit would go get him, and I don't know why. Because, well,
that's usually your play.
It's usually my play. That's like, but at least I made that play. Shit, I think I might even made that play last year. But I was about to say, at least I made that play close to his prime when he was still in football shape. Like, there's no way that cat's in football shape. I mean, he's close to our age. I mean, he's in his 30s now. I mean, he'll never be the best form of himself ever again. He smoked that shit away, and I got no problem with marijuana smokers. But be smart. Be smart about it.
Don't smoke weed. Get paid millions of dollars. I mean, I think I could take that. I'd be fine. I don't know. It's crazy.
It is wild.
So yeah, the quarterbacks didn't do well. They each had a running back that didn't do well. No, Chase's running backs did fine. His wide receiver,
yeah,
tied in too. That helped out Dallas a lot. What's up with Aaron Jones? Is he hurt or?
He's he's banged up.
Okay.
And I kind of feel bad. I feel like Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook are incredibly similar running backs in that when they're on, they are two of the best in the league. But they find a way to get banged up constantly. is the way of the league. The only person who seemed to really stay away from that continuously for the last 4 years is Derrick Henry, and even he found an injury.
Yep.
It's because Chris Carson for the Seahawks, when he's on, he puts up numbers like crazy.
But
Uh,
usually hurt.
and yeah, I mean he's a walking injury. I don't think he's played a full 16.
Well,
Nick Chubb has done a couple of full 16s, but now he's hurt. Christian
yeah,
McCaffrey. I mean, you talk like all these backs who are kind of like glommed up together right now. If you talk about them at full health, it would be so crazy to try and rank them. Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Chris Carson, Joe Mixon, Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, there's just a ton. Nick Chubb, I don't think I said him, including his backup, Kareem Hunt, even.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah.
Uh, but they all find injuries, and I get it. I mean, if you're a running back, you, especially a starting running back, your entire job is to take hits on every single play in one form, fashion, or another.
Yep. So let's look at this one.
And
Trent actually did pretty good considering that Chris Godwin got him 0.7 points. He got 0 points from his tight end, and his defense had -2.
yeah,
And still scored it in that a 90s and won.
and is going that this is why I thought we could breeze through these because Game of Jones is storming into the playoffs.
Yep.
Game of Jones and the Bull Wieners have the playoffs locked up. That is it. He will go, and I think Jerry had a little lamb for Brandon Hicks. Well, I think he gave up on the season quite some time ago.
Yeah.
I don't see any buys or injuries. Oh, CD Lamb. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played all. But
I mean, he hasn't played. Sorry, some reason my scroller's not working.
Hmm.
But yeah, he didn't play at all. And Dalvin Cook got hurt, so
yeah, and DeAndre Swift got hurt.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it actually wasn't a terrible lineup. Maybe he did pay attention. Maybe I'm being too hard on him.
He does have an empty spot on his bench.
Maybe I'm being exactly accurate on him.
So Santana, man, he
Yeah,
showed up this week.
Santana's team exploded. Now, granted, it was.
I mean, Leonard Fournette, yeah, having him on your team.
He's having himself a hell of a year. Also, Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah,
he has two dudes on his team that nobody expected this year out of either one of those two guys. Also,
Brandon
Cordarrelle
Cooks.
Patterson. Speaking of a running back, now granted he spent a lot of his time as Brandon Cooks also, but Brandon Cooks actually makes sense. Brandon Cooks has been that guy everywhere he's been with every quarterback he's played with. He's 1,000-yard a season guy. I mean, he actually is incredibly consistent. He's fast. He's a great route runner, and he catches everything thrown his way. He makes sense. Leonard Fournette has been shaky since he got into the NFL, and Cordarrelle Patterson, no one could find a role for him until
he went to
Arthur
Atlanta.
Smith was like, "You're a running back. You're not a receiver. You're not a hybrid. You're not a return guy. You're a running back." Because we saw you kind of start to transition into that in New England. You are going to run the ball for us. And since he started to do that, that's all she wrote. Now he's a running back who can run routes and catch the ball. He still does that, but he's a running back first, and
also can return kicks.
And also can return kicks. They're not trying to use him as everything. They're using him as the one thing, and then he does the other things, in spots, not all the time. And it's worked out phenomenally for him, and good for him. I've always liked him.
Yeah, I was glad he got out of Chicago and then ended up in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, I think the Vikings drafted him, and then I think he went to the Patriots, and then I think he went to Chicago after that, and everybody tried to use him as a gadget guy because he's 6'2", 6'3", kind of lanky. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
solid 6'2", 6'3". He's just not built like a modern day running back. But I mean, shit, look at Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick
Yeah.
Henry's not built like a modern day running back, and he's probably the best there is when he's healthy. Although I don't think Derrick Henry can catch like Cordero Patterson. Although I don't
No.
think Cordero Patterson can run motherfuckers over like Derrick Henry.
No. So yeah, this was a game that I don't think had any playoff implications going
No,
into it.
they're at 0%. They're both eliminated. And
But
this one
these two
absolutely
did.
did, and
Yeah.
still does. Yeah, like both of these teams are still very much alive.
I don't see how.
Uh, yeah, Matthew starts the season off gung ho, texting, talking shit, does good in the draft. I mean, he obviously did great in the draft.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not great. I mean, Kenyon Drake's probably not. Oh no, he had Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's who he would have
Yeah.
been playing. He also has Damian Harris sitting right there, who, would have boosted the team tremendously. In fact, if he plays Harris and he plays Tua Tagovailoa, I don't think that notches him the win, but it gets him god dang near close.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I mean, you can't do it for him.
well, and that helps me out in the long run.
Yeah.
That helps me out. But
So speaking of let's look at these standings. So we got me and Trent, of course, going, and then we have 2 7-5 teams, and then 3 6-6 teams, and
Yep.
even the 5-7 teams have a chance as well.
Have an
Now, a lot
outside,
of shit's got to happen, but
have an outside chance. I can't remember what. Maybe the projected playoff bracket. One of them's got a percentage.
yeah, it's right here.
Oh yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. So no. Chase he's eliminated.
Chase is out. Okay.
Um, and
How do you have 4% chance? I guess everybody losing.
I play. I think Will plays. Will and Harry play Dallas, I believe, this week. And if they win, then he goes to 7-6. And if I win against, I think I'm playing Dante this week. If not Dante, I don't know. But then I can go to 6-7. Basically, yes, no. All sorts of chaos has to happen. I'm the Notre Dame. That's actually that would be way too close to it. I'd be like Ohio State sneaking in there somehow.
Yeah. But it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how I've been doing it. I mean, the only thing I could think is, the 24 moves I've made on the waiver wire.
Well, you've done work. You've done work. I started to feel pretty hopeless about this season a few weeks ago, and just I had a couple of big games, and then I had a streak of bad ones, and I don't have any more hope. But of course, I'll keep paying attention. I will. I'll wish Trent all the luck in the world to win this thing. I really do. Actually, I'm psyched. I hope that one of the two of you guys win it because I'd like a new winner.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess
Matthew's never won.
but also Matthew won't. Matthew's not gonna. He started Patrick Mahomes on a bye. That's not the guy who's gonna win the league.
Yeah, and still hasn't dropped Derrick Henry.
Yeah, although apparently he might be. Well, he'd be back for the playoffs, not for the end of the season, not for our playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's
Oh man. Alrighty. We've been going for about an hour and 20. So went through it, talked some college football. So SEC championship. What do you think the score is?
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you straight. Normally, I think Georgia's the better team, top to bottom. They've
Oh
been
yeah.
very consistent, although they haven't had to play the level of opponent that Alabama has in the West. But they stomped a mud hole in Florida's ass. But you can't do common opponent shit either because that never works out mathematically. Anyways, long story short, I think Georgia's the better team. I think Bama goes in there and punches them in the mouth, puts them on their heels, keeps that nasty, nasty front seven off balance all game long. New looks that maybe Saban and Bill O'Brien have had tucked away. In fact, start throwing screens for the first time because I think that would have ate Auburn up if they had
Yeah.
started doing that.
I
With
don't,
B Rob or Trey Sand. Now, obviously, you're lacking at the running back depth. Start throwing
yeah.
wide receiver screens, even though,
Yeah.
because you can't trust on your offensive line. You are not going to go in there and push Georgia's front seven around. So
Mm-mm.
you've got to go to the outside. You have to, or you're going to lose the game. I think they do. I think Bama sneaks away with a win, 23-17.
Wow. It's pretty bad because I do think Georgia is the better team. Um, I think the only advantage Alabama has, or the only two advantages Alabama has, is they do have experience in big games. There's still people, there's still players on there that have played in big games,
Oh yeah, obviously.
but also the second thing is Alabama has frustratingly, but at least coming out on top, and most of them played a lot of close games that came down to the end of the game, and some even more. So I would give that Alabama's only two advantages, though. I think Georgia wins. I think it's probably going to be like a 24-14
I could definitely
type
see
of
that.
thing, like a 10 point win. It's not it's not a just blowout win, but it's also not a close loss either.
The two things that give me pause on what I've said and gives credence to what you've said is that LSU held Alabama to 14 points, or not 20 points. I'm sorry. Um, and Auburn held Alabama to 10
10,
regular
yeah.
game points. Uh, so it is difficult because those two defenses, talented as they might be and good as they might be, have been nothing compared to what this Bulldog defense has been all year long. This Bulldog
Mm-hmm.
defense has been absolutely relentless. I really don't think we might even be giving them enough credit across the board. I think historically they should go down. And that's what scares me. And like I said, what you're talking about, like a 24-14.
Mm-hmm.
But that Alabama offense is tough to stop. I think Jordan Hare and the magic that happened in there has to have a lot of credence for the 10-point game output, and then the emotions for the LSU team has a lot of. But other than that, I mean, that's a 30-point offense. But I agree with you. If there's a defense that could hold them to 14 and without the magic of Jordan Hare with a 50-50 split crowd, although I also heard a lot of people trying to take some prop bets on fan split, although obviously you
Mm-hmm.
can never prove it, but saying
Yeah.
70% Georgia, 30% Alabama, and that would be a first in Mercedes Benz.
I highly doubt that.
I don't think so either. I think it'll be
Because
50.
even if Alabama fans think they're going to lose, there are tons of them that will still pay the money and go.
Exactly. So, say you've got some Bama fans who have been there, done that, seen the championships, they've got the tickets or whatever, and they're like, I'm just going to sell them. I feel like it's going to be a Bama fan that
Mm-hmm.
fills that spot. It's like, well, I'll buy them off you. I'll buy them more than face value.
Yeah.
But Like, I don't think that either team gets a home field advantage. In fact, a lot of the times when Bama's been in the dome, they get the home field advantage, even against Georgia a couple of times.
Yeah.
Uh, so, anyways, yeah. So I think you take Jordan Hare magic out of it, Ed Ogeron emotion out of it. That Georgia defense still has the chance to hold them to a point output like that for sure because they're just that talented. And they're a no-name defense or an all-name defense, especially that front seven.
Yep.
They will probably all play in the NFL for multiple years,
Yep.
and that is incredibly dangerous. It kind of feels like Georgia's year this year, and in
It
fact,
does.
I think I think Bama wins the SEC championship, and then I think Michigan actually, the way they looked against Ohio State, if they can get up for a game like that again, if they overcome Iowa, get that, pretty much month-long prep time in to prepare for, one of those two teams. They probably won't rematch Bama, Georgia immediately again. Although that would really be the only fair way to do it, honestly, is bump. Well, I don't know. I don't
No,
know.
you bump Georgia down to 2,
Yeah, just bump
and then
Georgia
Alabama would go in at 4.
and then play. Or, okay.
Because if
But
say
then
Oklahoma State wins, then they can say, well, we think Oklahoma State is better, even though we all know that it would be, Oklahoma State, Georgia versus Michigan, Alabama.
Well, yeah, that would be the scenario I'm thinking. You boot Cincy, or you keep Cincy, you change Cincy and Oklahoma State. They're interchangeable here. Michigan wins, they become number one
Yeah.
because they did it. Bama wins, they beat the number one team
They
and
could drop
survive
they could
the
or
gauntlet.
they could
They
go up
probably
to number
become number
2.
and then it would be wild to put Georgia at 4 over Cincinnati or Oklahoma State at that point. Like, because Georgia has survived the gauntlet as
Mhm.
well. I don't know. I mean, I think you might be eyeballing a first round matchup between 2 and 3 Bama, Georgia, however you want to organize them, and then Oklahoma State and Cincy, Oklahoma State and or Cincy are the ones playing
Yeah.
Michigan in the first round. But either way, what I'm saying is, if they match up in the semifinals, the playoffs, or the championship, I kind of think that's where Georgia gets them, like gets it dialed in and gets it done. But that's kind of how I feel. I think Bama's going to have a lot of emotions going into this. They get charged, they get it done, and then that month-long prep and that defensive monstrosity that is Georgia lock it in, and they get it done, and they do the damn thing for the first time since 1980, which is what I'm not pulling for because as I was telling a couple of my other Bama friends, do I hate to lose to you guys? Yes, absolutely. It sucks, but Bama is inevitable. Bama is always good. Bama has not experienced an entire decade. Basically, since Bear Bryant got there, they will win a national championship in a decade. They won one in the 60s. They won one in the 70s. Not one, multiple. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90,
Actually,
92.
yeah,
Oh, I guess the
79.
2010s. Nope, 09.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Bama
Cuz there
is
was
going to do what
the
Bama
I was
does.
going to say I think the longest stretch was between 79 and 92.
Oh, did they not get one in the 80s?
No.
Okay.
I think 79 was the last one that Bear won cuz he retired in 83. I think 82 or 83. And there were also a couple in there they were undefeated and should have won but weren't voted.
But
Not in the 80s or not between between Bear and Gene Stallings.
yeah, still like my thing is still because you can even go back for the 70s. Bama's had their runs in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s. A lot of them in the 30s actually. Uh, they're just always good at football. They're always good at football. They're always competing for national championships. Since the SEC was created, SEC championships before that. I can't remember what the conference was before that, but they are what they are. But Georgia hasn't won since 1980. And I would love for them to not win ever again.
Again, yeah. We'll see. Honestly, my prediction, like I said, 24-14, and Alabama's playing with Baylor in the Sugar Bowl.
Or playing Cincinnati or Oklahoma State, whichever one doesn't make it.
Yeah.
Although I guess Cincinnati wouldn't go to the Sugar Bowl, but
Usually the Sugar Bowl is reserved for the highest ranked SEC team. And then there are other bowls that are just at-large ones. I think because what are the bowls for the playoffs this year?
I actually don't know. I know the ones that are in rotation are Sugar, Orange, Rose, Peach, Fiesta.
I guess it'll be 2022. All right.
Rose, Orange, Peach, Fiesta. There's another one. Cotton? No. Yes. Cotton.
Yeah, so the two semi games are Cotton and Orange.
Okay.
So normally, I think either the Peach or the Orange are one. They're at-large ones. Obviously, the Rose Bowl is going to be Pac-12, Big Ten. Sugar is always SEC, Big 12.
They've had to adjust for both of those since the playoffs.
Well, yeah, when they're not in
traditionally, yeah,
when they're not a playoff game, that's how it goes.
Okay, yeah. So the CFP, like that, just counts, or not the CFP. The championship just counts as its own.
Yeah, it's just
which one are they going to play that in? Because they play it in one of the bowl stadiums, though, right?
It says it's in Indianapolis, at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Oh, yeah, that's not one of the bowls, so that's weird. So yeah, so you said it's Sugar and, or no, you said Orange and Cotton this year.
Cotton, yeah.
So yeah, Rose Bowl is Big Ten and Pac-12. Sugar's usually SEC and interchangeable between at-large and Big 12, right?
I'm not sure. Let's see these bowl games. All right. Sun Bowl. Where's the? Okay. So the Peach Bowl this year will be at-large versus at-large. Fiesta Bowl is going to be at-large versus at-large. Rose Bowl, Big Ten, Pac-12, Sugar Bowl, SEC, Big 12.
Okay, yeah. So yeah. So yeah, I mean,
so there'll be two. Right, yeah. There'll be
Sugar Bowl, Bama, Baylor.
Yeah.
Or Bama, Oklahoma State.
What was I thinking about that? Because, well, if Oklahoma State wins, they're pretty much going into the playoffs.
Yeah, they'll
and if they lose, then the highest ranked Big 12 team,
probably Baylor, because two lost,
will not go. So I'm saying it's Alabama Baylor in the Sugar Bowl, regardless.
Well, either way, if Bama loses, either way, they play one of those two teams.
I think it's still just going to be Baylor.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, you're right. If Bama loses to Georgia, because then Baylor would have either beaten Oklahoma State and then is the highest ranked Big 12, or they lost to Oklahoma State the Big 12 championship, and they're still the next highest ranked. Although, actually, that would make Oklahoma the next highest ranked.
I don't know if they would rank. It depends on how the ranks would go. I don't know if they would rank Baylor over Oklahoma, especially, you got to take into that coach thing again.
Yeah, no.
You got to take that into account.
Well, but the thing is, what you also have to take into account, the bowls are after the money. Uh,
This
so
is, this is true.
who's your bigger eyeball fan base?
Oh yeah,
Baylor, Oklahoma.
yeah. The future, the SEC team versus the future SEC team. Yeah,
Yeah, I actually think that's how they do it. I hadn't thought about that until just a second, but yeah, no, I think they'd bump Oklahoma in there if they did strictly by the rankings. Then yeah, I think Baylor would still remain maybe slightly ahead of Oklahoma, maybe slightly behind. I think they would remain slightly ahead, just AP because of the coach change. Um, but yeah, bowls, especially when it's not the national implications of a championship on them,
yeah.
that's about that money. I'm also pretty sure that's why Auburn got left out in '04. Oklahoma,
or
USC.
or
I
when
don't know if Auburn could have beaten that '04 USC team. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have gotten beat by 3 touchdowns.
well, I still think to this day that's the reason that Oklahoma State got left out in 2011.
I mean, obviously, it very well could be. Although I
I
watched the
you
whole season, and I'm neither an LSU fan nor a Bama fan. In fact, I'm an Auburn fan, so those would be direct rivals. There was nothing that Oklahoma State put on the field that made me think that they could play on a neutral site with either one of those teams. I would have loved to see, like, if there was a play-in game, let LSU and Oklahoma State play in to play. Actually, in fact, it would
it
have gone
would
the
have
other
been
way around. It would have
yeah,
been let Alabama play Oklahoma State to play LSU.
yep.
I would have loved that. And also, I'm here for expansion. Like, I think the most dominant programs are the most dominant programs, and it really doesn't matter. Yep, 100% do. But look at this year. This year has the most parity we've seen in quite some time. I mean, are the top programs still vying for it? Sure. But right now, the only perennial power of the college football playoffs that really has a shot to for sure get in is Alabama. And even that, they're playing as a dog. Because yes,
No,
Georgia's been once, but I mean, once.
once.
Uh, Notre Dame really looking from the outside in. Ohio State's pretty much eliminated. Oklahoma's pretty much eliminated. Oregon, once again, a way outside shot to get in there. Washington's eliminated. Michigan State's eliminated. I mean, we're about to have some brand new teams, brand new faces go in here. I'm fucking here for it.
And I wonder if they do that this year because you don't have the Alabama, you don't have all these teams that have they're in it year in year out. That they do finally say, you know what, we'll let Cincinnati in this year.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be the perfect year for it, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
especially right before the conference realignment that's going to happen. I mean, I don't. I've heard that Oklahoma and Texas are super outside shot of joining the SEC for 2022. So they're just going to have to experience and stew in the awkwardness that's happening out there for the Big 12.
'cause
Uh,
you live with your girlfriend and then y'all break up. You have to live there
yep.
for a while.
Yeah.
That
And I
kind of
think
thing.
I've heard that 2023 is pretty much the earliest they're eyeballing the SEC. Um, But and then same thing for Cincinnati and UCF and Houston in the AAC. Um, but yeah, no, I mean this year is the perfect year for it.
Yep.
Just give everybody this last bite at the apple before, because I think it's also pretty inevitable that some super conferences other than the SEC start to happen. I think
Yeah.
the Big Ten spends this offseason and going and getting some dudes. I think the Big 12, they go ahead and put the stake in the heart throughout this offseason. I think
Yeah.
somebody poaches Baylor. I think somebody poaches TCU. Um, I think the
I think
Pac-12, if they're
big
smart at all, I know that they did this whole stupid Pac-12, Big Ten, AAC or ACC alliance, which is stupid as hell in my
yeah.
opinion, because all they're going to do is end up backstabbing each other. Like
Yeah.
that's that all they've done is set each other up for backstabbery. You've given them pipelines to contact one another easily. Now everybody has everybody else's numbers. So, I'm dating Mary, but I like Beth that's dating John. Hey Beth, guess what? I got your number now. me and Mary, we're not that cool.
Yeah,
Um, and so I also think the Pac-12, if they're smart at all, they go after Boise State and BYU.
yeah.
Um,
And if the Big Ten's smart at all, they rush up and try and get Iowa State.
Or they probably rush up and try like push their goddamnness to get Notre Dame. I mean, you
That
throw
is
in
never going to happen. Notre Dame will never. You're hearing it right here, and you can play this playback, but you never will have to. Notre Dame will never be in a conference. It'll never happen.
I love the clean
They
read.
are way too damn arrogant to
I
do
love
anything like that.
I love the clean read for it, and for the most part, I'd agree. But right now, especially with Kelly leaving, think about what that program was before Kelly got there. They spent about 15 years in college football purgatory. I mean, I think LSU, out of the coaching changes that happened throughout the college football landscape, hit it out of the park. I really, really, really hate that LSU got him because that guy did more with less than anybody for the last 10 years, man. He has had that program in the national championship conversation his
3 times.
entire tenure at Notre Dame, and they have way more academic restrictions than probably anybody in the Power Five, maybe other than Duke and Stanford. Um,
In Vandy.
and well, yeah, and Vandy, but that's also why Vandy and Duke and for the most part Stanford, other than the fact they've actually kind of had a head. Anyways, agreed. Yes, Vandy, I put them in that conversation as well. But not one of those other ones have been in the playoff picture or national championship picture, and he has kept Notre Dame in that. And now he gets to go recruit with both hands. Like he doesn't have one tied behind his back. Not only does he go to get to recruit with both hands, he's not recruiting to fucking South Bend, Indiana, the bumfuck middle of fucking nowhere. Also to a university that
To a
prides
Catholic
itself
university.
on Catholic principles. So you have to hold yourself to the standard. No, you are going to recruit to LSU. Like, yeah, okay. Like day one, opening room, you've got the players you haven't even cut yet. You got 120, 130 folks in there. Like, I fully expect 30 of you to get arrested before we make final cuts. And if you're good enough, you'll still make the team.
Yep. All righty. It's getting late. We've been going for about an hour and 45. But it was a good show. You got any last words before we sign off?
I do not, but it was fun. I had a good time. Anybody who watches this back, let us know if you want us to talk about more of what we talked about this evening. If you want us to kind of keep it a little bit more strictly NFL next time. I know we went real heavy college. I have fun talking about all of football, and I can get down on any level of it other than, well, okay, I can get down on two levels of it, college and pro. I don't want to talk about high school football. But no,
Hey,
I have fun, man.
USFL. USFL.
Hey, we'll see. Maybe. I tried the AFL for a second.
The AAFL.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I didn't try it for very long. It sucked
I
dick.
still kick myself for not getting a Birmingham Irons hat.
Oh, you had such a short window right before the pandemic.
Yep. But anyway, well, it's been fun. And like Kenyatta said, let us know what you want us to talk about. If you want us to talk about any other sports. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and also hit that thumbs up for us. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Y'all have a good one.